Good morning, everybody. It is the 22nd of March. We are about to hear a nice little clip from a guy named Ted Sumner. He spent most of his life as a undercover cop, dealing with the drug trade, among other things. And it's very interesting to hear what he has to say about the war on drugs, pharmaceutical companies, and their connection to the government and DC and the laws that are made and stuff like that. We are going to be making our way to Comac and then Northport. I started in Center Reach. It is half an hour according to the VZ Navigator, just to get to the books that I have to pick up before I go to Northport to do a whole bunch of 50 jobs that we'll probably get to some of today. With the safety meeting this morning, we got a late start, so hopefully we'll get a bunch done and help out a bunch of people so that nobody is held up and none of our customers lose service in the meantime. There's a lot of work going on, as you can see. There's been construction along the way, which you haven't seen, but coming up on the site here. I have my strobe on because we want to let everybody know that there's some obstructions. Not to mention we're coming up to a red light, so we want everybody to know we're going to need to be slowing down anyway. As we're coming downhill, I don't want to waste all my momentum of the downhill, so I slow it down. You know, prior to getting to this red light, I'm going to have to stop at anyway. But everybody loves to come around me and floor it until they get to that red. In any case, here we go, Ted Sumner. And remember, kids, my nieces and nephews, I think of you every day, and I love you all. And hopefully we'll see you soon. All right, here we go. Oh, all right, here we don't go. So what we're going to do from here is I'm going to remind you to do your 6 things. Breathe, eat, drink, say, do, think. And you're going to drink half your body weight in ounces of water every day, so you can keep hydrated, just like a baby, not like an old person who is dehydrated.
By the light of the moon and stars.
And then we're going to soak our trail mix in it to give that water some flavor, so it's not boring.
Instructors have been kind of a last resort.
Then, here we go. All right, ready?
Ramsey on XM Talk, 168, weekdays,
Seriously?
9 to noon Pacific time.
Alright, this isn't it. Hang on.
And welcome back. Ted Sumner with us, Deep Cover Cop. Ted, so many people forget about our returning veterans from Iraq, from Afghanistan.
This is what you'll hear if you listen to the next segment on Mr. Super Potato Tomato.
America!
I don't think this is it either. What happened? Hang on.
312858.
Hang on. I might have to start this over.
And welcome back to Coast to Coast. I'm George Norrie. Let me tell you about our special guest tonight, Ted Sumner.
All right.
Former undercover police officer with the San Jose Police Department, worked under deep cover infiltrating various drug trafficking organizations in the 70s. Now, he left the police department, currently the president of a company owned by his family. In addition, he has taught the martial art of Kenpo for the last 45 years, and recently he has developed an incredible rehabilitation injured veterans program from Iraq and Afghanistan called Rehabilitation Through Kenpo. Here is Ted Sumner on Coast to Coast. Ted, welcome. How are you?
Very good, sir. How are you this morning?
Good to have you with us. You must know Jeff Speakman, the martial artist and actor who does a lot of Kenpo.
He's a very good friend of mine.
Oh, super.
As a matter of fact, I was on the promotion board when he was promoted to 8th degree black belt last year.
Is he up to an 8 already?
Yes, he is.
That is something. Is he doing any acting now? I know he's, he used to.
He just signed a contract with Lionsgate. He is doing a television show and working on 3 films. The one that'll be coming out soon recently will be Lido, called Lido. Mm-hmm. An action film with, I believe they had Mickey Rourke signed for it.
Oh, that's good. Yeah, Mickey's come back strong, hasn't he?
Oh, yeah.
He is. Well, tell us a little bit about you, Ted.
Well, what can I say?
Where do we start?
Where do we start? I grew up in San Jose.
By the way, as the speed limit is 40, this is life at 40, and I am 40, so this is my time right here, life at 40. Here we go.
After I went to San Jose State, I began studying martial arts when I was 13. Began teaching when I was 17 under the direction of my instructors, the Tracy brothers, teaching through their process, which now, years later, we find was cutting-edge andrococcus teaching processes. That is, whereby they teach adult learning processes. After I got out of the Army, I had taken some classes at San Jose State in law enforcement, although I was a history and English major, and I had a difference of opinion with my father about what I should continue to study, and he told me to look for employment elsewhere, so I did. I finished, out of 900 applicants, I was number 2 on the list for hiring at San Jose, when the validity of the examination was challenged, and all hiring was put on hold.
Oh, jeez.
And at that time, Santa Clara County was the place where the trial for Angela Davis was to be held, and the sheriff's department was beefing up their personnel, hiring officers in what were called unclassified positions. So they would, as positions became open on the department, they would go into classified slots. But nonetheless, we were sworn, trained, all that. So I worked for a year in the jail for the sheriff's department, and then an opening came up on San Jose, and I left and went to work for them. How I got into undercover work is another story. What had happened was there was a great deal of pressure being brought to bear on the chief, the mayor, the city council because of drugs in the high schools. And they knew very little about it, what drugs were coming in, how they were getting there, who was bringing them. So they did a department-wide search for young-looking officers. And at the time I was 25, but I could pass for 17. My wife at the time assured them that I could also pass for a 12-year-old.
Oh, come on, really?
Not looks-wise, she meant by the way I act.
Okay.
So they settled on me because I had a background in the martial arts. They felt that minimized some of the physical danger. And I was tasked to infiltrate the high schools, find out what they were selling, who was selling it, and that sort of thing.
This is where it gets interesting, kids.
Because they felt that it was relatively low danger, I was put in a deep undercover capacity. At that time, the way undercover operations were conducted was usually an informant would take an undercover officer in. The undercover officer would be wearing a body transmitter. He'd have close cover, further back cover. They'd record the whole transaction. If anything went wrong, boom, they'd come in and rescue him. But they felt that, there was minimal danger, which we found out that was not the case. The people bringing the drugs into the high schools were not high school students. They were pretty much the same people who the other agents were working.
And they were probably armed, Ted, I would guess.
Yes, they were. They were better armed than I was.
Jeez.
So when we
see how I slowly pull away from the red light? It's called no jackrabbit starts. And I slowly come up to the red. This way we're still rolling by the time it turns green. Here we go.
Completed that project. It was a tremendous success. They timed the roundup for 1 week before graduation in 1975 to scare the bejesus out of all the drug dealers, the drug users, and everybody else. And it had a tremendous effect. So then they decided that it was sufficiently successful. They decided to keep me undercover and see if I could go further with it, which I did for the next 2.5 years.
Did you enjoy that job?
He goes deep.
That's a good question. Like your previous guest said, I guess I was happy. It's sort of like anything else where you're exposed to a lot of danger. You're on edge a lot of the time. You don't really relax. You're constantly having to read people. The danger there for me was not so much that they might think I was a police officer, but that they might think I was an informant.
Right, exactly.
And they would have no...
They would have killed you.
Exactly. No misgivings whatsoever. Police officer, the addicts, the users, the younger people who are somewhat less inhibited than older, more mature people, there was some danger there with them. Once I got higher into the organizations, they'd just walk away if they thought you were a police officer.
You know, is it my sense, or is the war on drugs just not working?
Boy, it is one of the biggest failures our government has embarked on.
Millions of our dollars.
And you're in the business. You know, I'm on the outside looking into it, and I just don't see it working at all.
Of
you know, people who
of
want to
lives.
use drugs, illicit drugs, they're going to find it. And I've always advocated, and let me tell you why, but you might think I'm crazy, that we should just legalize everything. Legalize these drugs. You know, you're not going to create any more drug addicts than we already have. And at least you can control it. At least they don't have to rob people to get money to go buy it. They'd be able to go to some clinic and just get it. And we'd give it to them and set up some medical procedures to probably help these people. But I just don't think it's working, and I think we should legalize it.
Well, crazy? I mean, there's an organization called Law Enforcement Against Prohibition. One of the leading members is my former chief, Dr. Joseph McNamara. George Shultz, his former Secretary of State, George Shultz.
That's right.
William F. Buckley, before he died, was a supporter. No less a person than Albert Einstein, during alcohol prohibition, said that prohibition was the definition of insanity. Because you're trying to enforce a law which is unenforceable. So you're very much on to well, precisely what the Portuguese have done, the Swiss, the Dutch. Let me give you just a little background on what I mean, how this all came about. Back when I first came into law enforcement, we didn't see big drug problems. We saw marijuana, and most of the hard drugs they were taking were pharmaceuticals. They were
just getting prescriptions for this stuff.
Well, no, there was a lot of black market pharmaceuticals coming into the country.
Okay.
Wait,
the pharmaceutical companies were overproducing and letting it go into the black market.
Why would they do that?
On purpose. They were making a lot of money off it.
Sure.
Oh,
I'm sure they didn't. These are, legitimate, respectable companies. I'm sure they didn't.
Wow, I don't know about that, Ted. I think.
Well, what I'm saying is,
you're being nice.
They were selling it to other people, companies that were then the ones that were allowing it in.
The middleman.
But in those days, we didn't see a lot of death by overdose. And if there was a death by overdose, it generally involved a suicide or prescription drugs and alcohol. Alcohol was always involved.
Right.
Then in 1974, this was 10 years after the UN mandate, President Nixon declared the war on drugs. He put pressure on the pharmaceuticals to tighten up, not overproduce anymore, and the pharmaceutical drugs went away. And the black market took over. Now, what you had is, instead of people taking what we used to call Christmas trees or black beauties, they were using methamphetamines that were produced by organizations like the Hells Angels and others. So now you've got a black market, you've got an America with a large appetite for illicit drugs, and people with a vested interest in pushing it, and it's just snowballed from there. The actual war on drugs is costing close to $100 billion a year to conduct, and the problem is just getting worse.
Yeah, it is. I'm going to ask you about Afghanistan for right now, because you're doing work with a lot of our vets. And by the way, I
what does Afghanistan have to do with it?
When the Taliban was running Afghanistan, they had restricted the production of the poppy.
We can't have that.
For the illicit drug trade.
Where are we going to make our oxys from?
That drug stuff, the planting exploded. What happened?
How are we going to get the agents in high schools?
Free enterprise. The Taliban, for religious reasons, wouldn't allow the production. But that's one of their biggest crops in Afghanistan.
Right, that's their industry.
And they make a tremendous amount of money. Now,